Hello and welcome to the CloudBlue Connect community videos. Today's topic is usage management. Usage management comes under so many different names: consumption, metering, pay-as-you-go, and many others. That's why it's very important to understand the business scenario behind usage management. Usage management is the direct supply chain flow from the vendor to the provider, and it's schematically illustrated with this red arrow in the overall Connect architectural diagram. If you don't understand this diagram or don't know this diagram yet, please refer to the different video in CloudBlue Connect videos and community documentation. So the idea of this flow is that vendor system would be generating certain data that is then used by providers for the actual billing and invoicing of the end customers. Let's take a look at this flow with a bit more details. So we have ordering flow, when something is activated with the vendor, and then we have the actual usage flow from vendor to the provider. So the thing is that ordering happens rarely, right? This happens when somebody orders the subscription or somebody orders the service or maybe changes the service, but this happens rarely. And then once the service is activated, the vendor system starts generating certain flows of data. Sometimes it's daily, sometimes it's weekly, more often than not it's monthly, and this data needs to be communicated from the vendor to provider in a standardized way. And Connect helps service providers and vendors to standardize this relationship and save a lot of money on those custom integrations that otherwise providers and vendors have to do for multiple different products that providers have to maintain. So this is where usage flow comes into play, and we see those scenarios in different industries and in different verticals. So first of all, those scenarios happen quite often in the telecommunication industry. Right? With telecommunication, call detail records, CDRs need to be aggregated and communicated to the providers, and many other types of data. We see those types of scenarios with the Internet of Things and consumption data from different devices that need to be aggregated and communicated to the provider. We see it in infrastructure as a service, with pay-as-you-go services, with services like migration and professional services. So all things combined, those are the types of scenarios that are supported by CloudBlue Connect usage management module, and those are the business scenarios that we help to solve. Obviously, it doesn't cover all possible cases, but this is just to illustrate the variety of cases. You need to understand few important concepts when it comes to usage management. Well, it all starts with the product definition, and specifically with product capabilities. In Connect, we have three very important capabilities related to usage management. First of all, the actual support for pay-as-you-go that need to be activated on the product. Not every product requires to support pay-as-you-go. It needs to be explicitly activated. In Connect, we support 4 different schemas for usage reporting. I will explain all those schemas in a few minutes. Conceptually, right now, you just need to remember that you need to select which option, and there could be only one option for a given product in which this product reports data. And then for some products, we need to report capability of dynamic items for commerce systems that we're integrating with to be ready for items to dynamically appear in the report. Now, next concept that we need to understand is relative addressing of certain tier accounts in the system. So on provider side, we have hubs, and within those hubs, we have a hierarchy of tier accounts: providers, maybe marketplace, fake resellers, resellers, down to end customers, and then those end customers would have subscriptions. There are two ways that you can address, obviously, in this hierarchy. You can address this hierarchy from the top, and we call those levels. So provider will be level 0, marketplace in this example will be level 1, etc., etc., etc. And you can address them relative to subscription. And in this case, the direct owner of the subscription will be tier 0, reseller above will be tier 1, etc., etc., etc. Now, since vendors don't control this hierarchy and the number of tiers could change, we need to choose the way to actually address some of those tiers for vendors. And since vendors own the subscription, the only practically applicable way of addressing that we can use is relative to the subscription. That's why in the usage management module, we only use subscription relative, which means tiers, addressing of tier accounts for usage data. And thus, when we report different schemas that are supported by usage management module, there could be quantity, price rated, cost rated, and tiers or multi-tiers rated type of usage. Quantity is pretty straightforward, and typically quantity exists everywhere, but the first schema of quantity means that when vendor reports usage data, then vendor reports like this data to service provider, and then provider has some billing function configured in, or some billing middleware configured in their systems that uses quantity to actually perform billing. Right? So it means that they have pricing for those items somewhere in their systems typically. In price-rated schema, vendors return the price of the actual end customer, and then providers calculate prices for different tiers of margins that are configured in their system. In cost-rated is the reverse of price-rated. In this schema, vendors report the actual provider price or provider cost, like depends on from which side you look, and then providers configure markups in their system and use those markups to invoice their customers or resellers if their system supports resellers. In tiers rated or multi-tiers rated, vendors can return pricing data for multiple tiers, and not necessarily for all of them, but multiple tiers, and then this data is directly used by providers to perform billing of their end customers. I wouldn't get too deep into all those four schemas and pluses and minuses of them. You just need to remember that when you integrate a product or when product gets integrated, you need to understand the schema, and quantity is when quantity is returned, price is when end customer price is returned, and all billing is done of that. Cost rated is when cost data for the provider is returned, and tiers has multiple tiers with custom price data. The workflow of usage management is pretty straightforward and could be illustrated with the following diagram. So we have two primary actors, vendor and provider, and it all starts from the vendor. Vendor has systems that need to be normalized and integrated with provider systems, and provider systems then will be invoicing end customers. Vendors have systems that are the source of usage data here in this diagram on the left, and obviously each system returns data in some system-specific way. So the first step that vendors have to do is to normalize the data that is being reported to the standardized, we call it normalized usage file that is enforced by Connect, and that is returned in the scope of a given marketplace. Once this file is uploaded to Connect, or this data is returned through API, Connect will process this data, and if all validations have passed, then Connect will generate the actual processed usage file. And this usage file that could then be submitted to by vendor to the service provider for review and acceptance. When service provider receives this file, they can review, they can reject it, they can accept it, and once accepted, those files will be split per hub, because provider might have multiple systems, and either exported to each hub in bulk uploads through usage file chunks, or by API level integration on record level through the API requests. Either way, in the end of the day, this data will be used by systems of the provider to bill the end customer. And then once end customers are billed, we will extract data that was used to bill the end customers with reconciliation IDs, and those reconciliation IDs will be stored for complete end-to-end reconciliation of the usage scenario. This is the workflow that you need to understand, and for this diagrams and explanation of steps, please refer to our documentation. Now, the actual key data objects that participate in this flow are different types of usage files, source normalized usage file, processed usage file, chunk files that are generated per hub, and then reconciliation files, and all of them contain individual records. Usage file has thus obviously multiple statuses, It has a draft state when it's uploaded by the vendor, then it's uploaded, then it's being processed by Connect, and Connect validates a lot of things like ability to address certain assets and proper items, etc., etc., etc. If validation has failed, then Connect will not allow vendor to upload this file. Once validated, vendor can re-upload it if vendor detects certain mistakes, and then submit it to service provider. Service provider can reject this file or accept this file, and once accepted, it will be used for the actual billing, and once all identifiers are reconciled, it will be closed. For each record, it basically goes through the same flow. It's uploaded, validated, pending, accepted, and closed. It's as easy as that. Now let's take a look at the actual workflow in our portals and APIs, because this is pretty much the same thing. So let me remind you that in Connect we have 4 different ways for integration, and even though I will be showing you the portal-based integration right now, you can do all the same things with our APIs, because our portals are built on top of the same APIs, and I'm showing it to you in UI just to illustrate you all the possible scenarios that you can do. The scenario starts with the vendor portal, and in order to start this flow, you need to have access to usage management module to start with. You need to create new usage file. It will actually provide you with the wizard with detailed instructions of what you need to do and link to documentation. First, you will need to select your product, and please take a note that not all products can be used to upload usage. And this is actually related to those capabilities, product capabilities that we discussed a few minutes ago. So in order for vendor to be able to upload usage, the capability for usage management needs to be enabled. And this capability is enabled in product management, in general page capabilities. This is where you can manage capabilities of your product, and specifically capabilities related to usage management. Once you enable this capability, you will be able to declare pay-as-you-go items, all the different attributes of pay-as-you-go items, precision of those items, etc., etc., etc. You will need to select environment as a vendor. I mean, currently we are only looking at production scenario, but vendors can do internal testing without bothering the staff of provider to process certain file. You need to select provider account where this usage file will go to, and then marketplace of that provider. And obviously, vendor needs to have active listing with that service provider in order to report usage data. Depending on the type of schema that is enabled for this product, different set of data will be returned. At the bare minimum, it will be time period that is covered by the file, and in those schemas that require currencies, like price rated, cost rated, currency will have to be returned. And once all of that is done, the usage report will be created, and the vendor portal will ask you to upload the actual usage file, or you can do it through API, of course. Now, the usage file itself, you can download template from the portal, looks very intuitive. It has built-in instructions, and it has all the data definitions in itself. And in the end of the day, it needs to contain the actual records tab with all those individual usage records in it. So once uploaded, it will be processed by the portal, and once it's successfully processed, you will also see that records statistics will be updated to indicate that more records were validated now, and vendor can submit this report as long as vendor is happy with the data that they see. And this completes the report submission. So this report will switch to status pending, and with that it will be sent to service provider for review. And with this, we actually just went through the steps 1 to 4 in this overall workflow diagram of the usage management module. And we are transitioning to the next phase of this, that is already on provider side. Which brings us to the provider portal. In provider portal, we also have usage management module. It's very easy to access it, and provider will see the report in the usage management module details. The usage report will be there. From the list, provider can see the period that is covered by the report, the actual product, the marketplace, the schema, etc., etc., etc. Within the report, the first thing that provider will have to do is to accept this file, just that it passes the basic validation, because like in case this data is invalid or like contains something that is not accepted by provider, this is the chance for them to reject it and request a vendor to update certain data in it. And once accepted, it will be processed further. Let me make a note that there are different processing options in the portal. You can do it manually. You can create custom middleware to do it through your APIs. We also provide automation rules for usage. So without any custom built software, you can actually go to the product on the provider side and define automation acceptance or automated rejection rules. I will not be getting into too much details into those rules right now, but just please beware that those rules exist, and it might be the simplest way for you to create simple automation without need to create any code or work with automation tools like Zapier and others. Once accepted, whether manually or through some middleware or through usage rules, the whole file will transition to the status accepted, and all records will be transitioned to the status accepted. And this is when extraction per hub is possible. So it might happen that you operate in multiple systems. In this example screenshot, I only have one European ERP system that we're working with, but there could be multiple. Imagine ERP for West Europe and East Europe, while vendor will be reporting you for the whole region. In this case, Connect will split the usage data per hub, and this data could be extracted by downloading it or through API, and this data could be used for actual billing in the external system, whatever the system is. And with this, we've just gone through the flow from steps number 5 to steps number 6 and step number 7. We obviously did not do the billing because like this depends on the system, whether it's SAP, Oracle, Microsoft Dynamics, or any other system. But obviously using this file that could be extracted from Connect, you can bill it from pretty much any system, from QuickBooks or any other even very simple ERP system. And this brings us to the last step of reconciliation. In order to reconcile the data and keep track of all records that are happening and be able to reconcile accounts payable side of the story with the vendor, providers can upload the reconciliation file back to Connect. Reconciliation file is basically very similar to the original usage file. It just has additional columns that allow service provider to store those additional identifiers, order IDs, invoice IDs, billing IDs, whatever those are in their systems, to have this whole cycle covered and to be able to reconcile and identify which billing order or whatever invoice was used to actually close this record from the vendor. And once uploaded, it will be processed, and once all of the records are closed, the whole usage file will be marked as closed, and this completes the workflow of usage management. So we've just completed the last step, step number 8 in the overall workflow of usage. For more information about usage and other modules of Connect, please refer to CloudBlue Connect community. We have our website. Please visit our website at connect.cloudblue.com community. We have our YouTube channel, and we hope that you like it. And if you like it, please subscribe and leave us a comment, and we will be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.